Hello.
Hello, everyone. Just want to touch base. Josie, will you be sharing the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Right, hello. We have about a minute before we start, so I'll give everyone a little bit more chance to get logged in. Welcome. Okay, we are at the top of the hour, so welcome everyone to AACRAO's Transfer and Articulation Community of Practice Forum. The showcase for today's topic is Student Information Systems. My name is Desley Giorzi, and I'm the College Articulation Manager at University of Phoenix, and I'm stepping in for Mark Booker while he's out on vacation. We have some amazing speakers for you today sharing their SIS with us. You'll get a chance to see what banner looks like, which is from sharing us, or who's sharing it with us is Eastern Kentucky University and University of Notre Dame. You'll see PeopleSoft from Indiana University, colleague from St. Mary's College of Maryland and College of Southern Maryland, and you'll even get to see a homegrown SIS from University of Phoenix. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Josie Martinez, the Assistant Registrars to University of Notre Dame, who actually has been leading and coordinating this forum for us. So big thank you to you, Josie, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Desley. Desley's nice enough to say that I was actually the one that threw this topic out there, so I was taking responsibility for what I created. But thanks for everyone for being here. We've been talking in the committee meetings about what types of topics to discuss in the webinars. And at some point, I think all of these are something that's been done before, but we decided talking about student information systems and what we can leverage within our own SISs for transfer and articulation deserves some attention, because there's tons and tons of third-party tools out there. And just to be clear, we will definitely be discussing that in, I believe, April. Desley, tell me if I got that wrong. But we wanted to first start with SISs and what they do. So the analogy as an opener is just that, like, SISs in my head, I think of them as like the deep pocket of the ocean, because they're vast and uncharted. There's tons of opportunities to learn. You just have to crack open a instruction manual and you'll be surprised what you find out your SIS can do sometimes. They have long histories sometimes, and if you're lucky enough that the person who helped onboard the SIS is still at your institution, they can be a wealth of knowledge. But if they have since moved on, sometimes you're left with questions like, why is this done this way? So they're these great mysteries sometimes, but they also have a lot of potential if you tap into them. So it's like Desley said, we have about 3 or 4 SISs today. Each speaker, we're going to try and get us on 10 minutes per topic, and that reminds me that I need to get a timer out, or else I would definitely talk too long. But we're going to try and spend 10 minutes on each one. So for each person that's presenting for an SIS, just let me know when you want me to move to the next slide, and I will. But without further ado, the person talking, oh, sorry, we had some focus questions today. particularly what features within your SIS do you leverage? Because shockingly, there are tons and tons of options within SIS, but you may not use all of them depending on your needs for a university, especially if you have other tools that are handling that. We also asked about credit for prior learning because that's gaining a lot of attention these days. How is credit for prior learning being logged in SIS systems when it's being logged as transfer, or if it's being logged as transfer? We asked about how institutions are storing their course equivalencies. Are they storing them in their SIS? And if they are, how are they maintaining them over time? Because just because you created an equivalency in 2001 doesn't mean that that equivalency might still be relevant here today in 2024. Our other questions included data, if anyone is using pulling data with using the information that's in their SIS. The second to last is how we are identifying how people assign institution IDs to institutions. There are many different ways to talk about it, many ways to do it. And when you add in networks such as Ivy Tech, Maricopa Community College, the City Colleges of Chicago, it can get even trickier because those are all campuses that share one syllabus or one transcript in a master syllabus, but they're each their own institution at the same time. And then lastly, just a quick brief about what type of third-party tools do you hook up with your SIS, with the caveat that we're going to talk a lot more about third-party tools in the future. So without further ado, Banner is first up. I'm joined with Associate Director Audrey Smith from Eastern Kentucky University. So the two of us kind of teamed up and talked about decided on some cool things that we like that we're using in Banner. And put some slides together.
Hello, everyone.
So for Lucy and Banner, we both agreed that some screens the two of us use are the transfer equivalency screen. We both leverage the calendar conversion screen to help convert credit hours when an institution is on different units than ours. Audrey's school actually does something pretty interesting with building a report to keep track of new transcripts when students send them in. Her institution also does something really interesting that I'm excited to learn about from hearing her talk about the SOAB GTA screen for institution profiles, as well as the Shatik screen for articulating credit. And then my own institution is using the Scott Edel and Scott Core screens to help articulate credit. To start things off with Shatater, something that my institution is currently looking at but hasn't implemented is using AI to scrape syllabi and store course descriptions in Banner. It's something that we noticed it can do, but hasn't been done before in our SIS. So we're kind of interested in doing that to see if we can turn that into a report someday to see if we can use that to track changes into courses. But I'll turn this over to Audrey now to talk about SOAB GTA and institution attributes.
Okay. So it's kind of funny. We all call them different things, but if you hear me say SOAB GETA, it's this is what I'm talking about, is the SOAB GTA. So in SOAB GETA, this is the screen where you house institution information, transfer institution information. And I do want to make a quick note. We kind of touched on the STV CALD. That can be accessed through SOAB GETA. So that's on that first section of SOAB GETA there. You can enter whatever, like if the transfer institution is quarter, EKU is straight semester. So that will tell the system to, what the calendar is, and then it will automatically convert those credit hours. And that is very nice because who wants to do math? We have enough to do. So one thing that we use that we have in SOAB GETA is when we historically EKU only recorded non-regionally accredited, or only recorded schools that were regionally accredited. Now we've moved away from that. If an accrediting body is recognized by the Department of Education, that school falls under that accrediting body, we'll record that school. But in order to organize that on our transcript recording report, we use on the second page of SOAB GETA, there is a place where you can put attributes and I think comments as well. So for that institution. So if there's ever any changes, you can utilize the comment section there. And that we used that, and we created these attributes, and then we built that in our report to look for those attributes so that we know whether we can record that school or not. So in ShawTake, well, at EKU, I do want to mention, so if a course has never been received by EKU before and it needs department evaluation, when we're recording the coursework, we make it, we use a placeholder course, and we mark it with an N, so we call them N courses. So that placeholder course is there if it needs to be evaluated, and then we run reports to know what courses need evaluation, and we're able to find them with that N course. And then if a course is evaluated, but the department says, well, it doesn't really have an EKU equivalency, the elective is marked with an X in the course number. So in ShawTake, one thing that we do when we have a new course that we've never received before, and what we used to do when we would record the coursework is record it in ShawTake and have to move over to ShawTater, enter in the course equivalency, create the transfer course, and then, put in the placeholder equivalency, go back to ShawTake, articulate the work, roll it to a history. Now we do not have to leave ShawTake at all. And it's wonderful. It's my predecessor to this position before actually worked with our IT department, and they worked behind the scenes to make it so that all we would do is, if a course doesn't have an equivalent, all we do when we record the coursework is manually type in the transfer title. You hit save, articulate it, and that communicates to ShawTater, puts it in ShawTater automatically. We do not have to leave that screen. It puts it in there, and then when we articulate it in ShawTake, it communicates back and shows us that placeholder course. And so I put some screenshots there to kind of show what it looks like, but it's really, really nice and very handy. It saves a lot of time.
Sorry, lost my mute button. That is awesome. I forgot to mention that we will, and people can drop questions in the comments if they'd like. If we don't have time to get to them, we'll follow up with you. So then something that Notre Dame is doing, and this is probably not news to some institutions, I think this is gaining popularity as people see the applicability, but we're using what we call smart codes. It's not a new term. The University of Oregon coined it back in like 2012, I believe, for like Audrey said, cases when this transfers to our university, we just don't offer an equivalent to it. What we have done to try and improve the applicability of courses when that happens is we're creating special umbrellas for courses. So in this example provided, these are real examples. We created these courses that could apply towards history majors, such as the African and Middle Eastern history elective portion of a history major degree. Or the Asian history elective for Asian history electives of a history degree. We created these bucket courses or umbrella courses. The X changes, the number will vary with the level of the course. So it's a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, depending on the level of the course for freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. But they're all numbered like this, like in this example here with 9901. Those are all going to be Middle Eastern history elective courses. They have an attribute because we use attributes to apply a lot of courses in our degree audits. But essentially any course that our history department reviews and says, we don't offer a major for this, but we would absolutely allow a student to use it towards the African and Middle Eastern history elective. They can give it this number. It's repeatable, reusable, and so it can be applied to the course, and it can be applied to any other courses the student might have taken that also fall under that umbrella. And it saves exceptions, which is a very time-consuming task, as a lot of people are aware.
Right, so this is, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about credit for prior learning, and specifically I want to talk about how we enter in our military credit and what we've done with that. But I did want to mention that at EKU, we view most credit for prior learning is entered in the system as a transfer course. Basically, you know, if it's something that somebody else has given the student credit for, then it's transfer. If it's something that they do like a departmental exam at EKU, then, you know, we gave them that credit. So that's institutional credit. So I want to talk about our military credit. And so that being said, everything is in Shaw Take. So with our military credit, we had an old system, and I tried to give an example of it there. It was basically case by case with each student. Our OMVA, or Military and Veterans Affairs Office, would review the student's JST, and then let our registrar's office records these, let them know what courses the student would get credit for. And, you know, each student has, whether they have the same job or not, they have different experiences, even in the same jobs in their in the military. So there were some instances where students were like, we were creating duplicate courses. And there was just a lot of muddiness. So now what we're doing, military credit, JSTs, are I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but ACE, the American Council for Education, kind of like evaluates these credits, and then will create their ACE identifiers. So what we started doing is using the ACE identifiers to record the coursework and the equivalencies. And so we would, that helps clear it up a little bit. If you look in that lower box in the bottom right corner, under the new ACE identification, the second course there, second and third and fourth there, and fifth, they're all listed. They're the same course, AR0419. But if you look over on the right, is 0046 is the course number. So the AR0419 is the subject, the 0046 is V1, V2, V4, V5 is the course number. The reason we have those differences there, the V1, V2, V4, V5, those help differentiate the students' different experiences within those jobs. So now what we're able to do is our own VA office has created a portal, our Vets Ready Opportunity Portal, where a student is thinking about coming to EKU. They can go into this portal, enter their branch, their military training and occupation, their rank, and their training dates, and they know exactly what credit they're going to get when they get here. It's no longer case by case. It's already recorded and it's already established, and it's so much cleaner and so much easier, and makes it just a world of a difference for the student.
And Audrey, you did have one question. Someone asked, is
Yeah.
your process the same for the community college, the Air Force?
That's a good question. We actually record those directly from the transcript, the Community College of the Air Force transcript. So those just act like a regular transfer transcript.
Awesome. As for data reporting, this is speaking more from some previous lives of mine. Data is still being developed here at Notre Dame. I've only been in my role for a little over a year, actually. But in some past lives, we have leveraged data from our SIS system for transfer. One of them was to try and get an estimate of how often students were receiving credit for electives versus how often were students receiving direct equivalents, so credit for something that we actually offered at the university. I have heard of a school having the need to like kind of do something interesting. They also tracked for electives and direct equivalents. They had to create a smart code for extra credit left over after a direct equivalent, because it was throwing their numbers off to see all this undistributed when some of it was like left over from the course was more credits than the receiving institution's similar course. We've also done things like tracked how many transfer records were created within a certain data range. That one's just kind of a badge of honor, like, look at all we did this last season. But it's helpful also to get an idea of like workload you can expect. It's a good way of, if your institution relies on temps, it's a good way of knowing what type of workforce you might need. Similarly, number of students that transfer credit from different institutions has been helpful in terms of like finding institutions that they might be good transfer partners somewhere down the line. And then lastly, this one's very interesting and unique, but because of the state of Indiana having the state transfer are single articulation pathways. They found one of my previous employers found it necessary to keep track to note on a student's SHAN course record if they were part of an articulation agreement and if the articulation agreement was in progress, completed, or they left it with no intention to return. And so applying that SHAN course to student records individually, while it was cumbersome, was also helpful to get an idea of how many TSAP students were coming from the school. Something that Notre Dame is doing to maintain its transfer equivalency data is that we have created some different categories in the STIV task screen. We don't just have the active and inactive and pending approval. We also have review title, review course, and re-review course. And that's there. As you can see, there are some logics, the three bullet points. Essentially, if we see a course and the title has changed from the previous time it was entered into the banner Shatater, it's recorded and STIV tasked as re-review due to title. If the course's credits are different from the last time it was looked at, we list it as re-review due to course credits. And lastly, just if it's been more than 5 years since the class was last looked at, it's tagged as re-review with course credits.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about, how do we recognize transfer institutions? So we use SEEB codes or ACT codes. And if an institution, and we've seen a lot of them, if an institution we will record doesn't have one, then we create our own code. A lot of them are like 9993, and they always have an X in there, and that lets us know that it's a created code. Okay, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. I did want to mention real quick, we talked about, on that list, it was like with institutions that have multiple campuses. You mentioned Ivy Tech. I did want to mention one thing that we do is that they may have different SEEB codes, but we always record and put all of the articulations, all of the equivalencies under the main campus code, and that just about, keeps us from having to create a lot of equivalencies in multiple campuses because they're all the same. And then we have the community college system in EKU. We have that all under one code. So every campus gets recorded under that one code.
Okay, and then for third-party tools, both of our institutions use DegreeWorks as a degree audit. Notre Dame has started to use Raptor. I'm going to put strong asterisks because I know that it's new territory for us. So we're still learning from our experience, but we have hooked up with Raptor. We've used it successfully with a handful of students, and we're excited to see where to go from here. Without further ado, now I'll hand this over to Kim Mayfield from Indiana University to discuss PeopleSoft.
Hello, I'm Kimberly Mayfield. With transfer operations at Indiana University, we are a centralized system across all of the campuses. So of course we have Bloomington and Indianapolis, Columbus, Fort Wayne are under them, Kokomo, Northwest, Southeast, East, and South Bend. All of these campuses in SAS have their own instance. So they're kind of like their own institution in SAS. So we help with the processing of transfer credit and the little intricacies around there. Online is actually interwoven between all of these campuses. So they don't really have their own institution in SIS per se. But when it comes to transfer credit, they piggyback off of what we have for the other campuses. They have their own setup in other areas, obviously. But transfer credit, it's a bit of a sharing in case by case basis there. So, well, go back for a second. So when we're setting up transfer credit, all of them have the master catalog that they all share. If it's the same course number, course code, it's considered the same course across all of the campuses. The external org catalog, so the courses that from external institutions, those are shared across all of the campuses. And then when we create an external org, it's also shared across all the institutions. Individually, each campus does have their own courses, so their own course catalog. They may or may not, those courses may or may not be taught at other campuses. But in some instances, when we're like creating a rule or something, it is going to be campus specific if we're using a certain course. We also have an articulation rule database. All of these rules are separated or unique by campus. So we have 9 different sets of articulation rules, basically. And the evaluation process is also individual per campus. Yeah. So our SAS, we store, maintain all the transfer course articulation rules in PeopleSoft. We have combined and over 930,000 rules in our system. If you're looking at the Indianapolis number here, it is off because they are restructuring their rules at that time. So it's not accurate, but they are one of the top ones. So their number is up there too. So with these rules, they're automatically applied to student records. So when we get a transcript coming in, it's set up where once the transcript is entered into PeopleSoft, there's a regular process that pulls that information into the transfer model, and it automatically reads the rules that we have created and applies them to the student record. So the potential is that we don't have to do anything to the student record if it's like from Ivy Tech or something. It should all count or all be done automatically. We do have an external org catalog. It's not very robust. It just lets you use the subject and number and name and credit hours and that type of thing. We don't really, we aren't capable of adding a course description. So this is, credit for prior learning. We have a process. It's not housed in my area, but it's called an e-special credit process. So it would be started by the advisor or the department. It's a FIRE form. It's integrated into PeopleSoft. They share the data, and it automatically pulls student data as well as the course information. So they can easily pick the course during the evaluation. They can pick the course, the IU course it should be given. And then it routes between different areas depending on who needs to be in the know. So there's the dean, bursar, student, or the registrar. Not our office because it's not something that we would set up as a rule or anything like that. So it goes straight to student records who applies it to their credit. And in PeopleSoft, we have 3 different areas where we can set up credit rules or apply credit to student records. Course credits automated, test credit, and then other credit. So in this instance, it's other credits and it's manual, completely manual. It's not something that we automate. Okay, so storing the transfer course equivalency data, we have the articulation rules, which I showed previously. There's some historical data available, but it's not much because it's based on when we update the rules. So it's not really based on the course, it's based on the set of rules. We have them grouped by external course subject. So it kind of chunks them up so there's not like all the rules are in one place. It allows us to update particular subject groups at a time. The faculty, we don't have a way, or we don't currently have a way to set up a time limit for like after 5 years, we want them to reevaluate. It's still faculty reevaluate a course as needed. And we don't have a process to assist in that. Evaluation activities and that type of process is in tests. So we have some data and we'll get there. So when it comes to statistical data, we started the transfer office in like 2013, and we've been slowly growing out these reporting. We have the institutional analytics group, and they do all like the snapshots and data and compile reports for official use. But for our team, I pull reports on a monthly basis just to see what we're doing and the students that we are affecting and how we're helping the campuses. So um, I gave you just a quick look at how many articulation rules we've created over the years. Again, this is not IU. IU, sorry, Indianapolis has been removed from this just because of their project. But we've definitely started increasing how much we've created over the last few years. And well, it's because of a vended product called Smart Panda, but I'll talk about that later. We also have the credit summary that I've been looking at. I wanted to know how much of the credit that is applied to student records actually is used towards the degree versus and what's manually done. So 47%, those are rules automated. We didn't have to touch them. Same with the 24%, they're automated rules, but they're undistributed credits. So they may or may not be automatically applied to degree requirements. We do have Gen Ed undistributed credit courses at some of the campuses, and those ones are programmed to meet requirements. So they would kind of act like the direct credit in the way that they would go right towards the degree requirements. But on our reporting, it would look at undistributed credit. So there's some more work to be done here just to see that. But then we have the manual processing. It's like a rule wasn't created, which means someone had to go in there and manually create it. And the 6%, that's direct credit. Why haven't we set that up as a rule? So it just gives us a target to like, what can we improve? What can we target? What areas can we push on to make the numbers look better and help students?
Kim, you had a question. Are you using Raptor straight from Smart Panda or through Parchment?
I don't think that's for me, is it? We aren't using Raptor yet. We just got it. So it's not new. It's not in yet. Okay, so I inherited a huge database of external orgs that was never really maintained in a uniform way across all campuses. So we have a little bit of everything in there. In order for it to show on an application, it has to have an address. So that's one area. But after that, we have the transfer specific box here, the school data. And I've slowly been working on adding some of the little like boxes there. So the accreditation and the ATP code. The ATP code is, we started focusing on creating institutions with that a few years ago, and that's what we've been focusing on when creating articulation rules. But we currently have a project going on to fill out this school data as much as we can, because I'm hoping we can leverage it in a future project that we'll be building out soon, hopefully, for public view. So multi-campus networks. So our biggest one, Ivy Tech, it was such a struggle to maintain those rules. There's so many different campuses. So we ended up creating one ID for Ivy Tech, and that's what we created the rules under. So when we get a student, when a student fills out the application, they can still pick the individual campus they went to. But when it gets to us and data entry side of things, the transcript itself is put under the umbrella org. and then the rules are applied. We just have one place to maintain and update, and it's a lot easier than updating, I don't know, 20 some institutions at one time. But now we are using Smart Panda Rule Maker. And the other institutions like City Colleges of Chicago, we do update every single campus now because it's easier for us to do. So that jump that you saw in rule creation, that was from Smart Panda. And we don't worry necessarily about multi-campus networks anymore because it is so much easier and automated to create rules in SIS, in our SIS PeopleSoft with Smart Panda. Okay, so now here's the fun part with all the little pieces we built on. So we have our on base, which is where we store our documentation. We created a button in the education panel that when it's clicked, it takes you straight to the transcript. So when faculty or advisors are looking at a student record, they can easily pull up the transcript and see what's going on. We also have Credit Explorer, which is homegrown public view. It's very new, and it is not something that is going to be forever. It's in the interim, but using some of the other vended products, we're hoping to make it a lot better. We also use College Source tests specifically. It's available to all our campuses. Some use it more than others. For the regional campuses, we got an API from College Source that when we enter a transcript into the education panel, it reads overnight what was added. And if we do not have a rule for that course, it takes it and automatically creates an evaluation task for that campus in tests. And this is just for the regional campuses. So then it goes through their evaluation process, and we are proactively creating articulation rules that hopefully will be available to the students and automatically apply to the record when our system triggers the creation of the transfer model. And then there's Smart Panda Rule Maker. So it has a few different features on it, but the one that we use for the regionals is rule import. So we take the export from tests, have to play with reformat it a little bit, not very much, and then we send that through Smart Panda and it creates the rules. It literally takes us maybe 5 minutes to create like thousands if it's set up properly. So that's why we have that big jump. Bloomington uses a little bit different. They are a little bit more student focused when it comes to creating the rules. So they do it while they're working on individual student records. So there's a button that we got from Smart Panda. I think technically it's Rule Maker in Transcript Express, but it allows you to look up how that course has been brought in previously, and then see what rules have been made, or what articulations have been made, what's been used at other campuses as well, so other IU campuses. And then you can select the equivalency that you want, and you can add it to that student record. If it's a rule, if it's not a rule and you want it to be a rule, there's a button, Rule Build, and it creates the rule straight from the student record. So they started creating rules. They barely made rules before, but then once they got Rule Maker, they've been making thousands basically. So they're having fun with that. It's more productive because they have people to focus straight on the student record. So that's how it works for them. So there's 2 different versions, but we all use the same product, and it helps in all our different needs.
Thanks, Kim. Next up is our colleague institution, Jackie and Becky.
Right. So I'm Jackie Rogers Frere. I'm now the director of transfer at St. Mary's College of Maryland, but I previously was assistant registrar at College of Southern Maryland.
And I am Becky Price. I am still at the College of Southern Maryland, and I am now the new assistant registrar.
Yeah. So next slide. So for the College of Southern Maryland, our process for adopting our SIS system came from legislative changes. Well, all of us want to work on transfer. In 2021, the state legislators signed into law the Transfer of Success Act, which was a very, very drastically overhauled how the state of Maryland handles transcript evaluations. It was one of the I would say one of the biggest pieces of legislation for higher education in the state in probably about 10 years or so. So with that, we knew it was signed in 2021. In 2022, we started receiving information from the Maryland higher education system, and it became very evident per state laws that we needed to not only adjust how we do our transcript evaluations, but also make sure we do it in a way that we provided consistent services. And to be very honest, we did not want to sit down with a spreadsheet and have to track things through a spreadsheet. So our registrar at the time, Carol Harrison, who, fun fact, now works for Ellucian, she worked with all of us to really figure out a way of how could we adapt Colleague without creating any custom screens. We had just came out of a project in 2020 where we went back to what we called the vanilla version of Colleague, removing 99% of our custom screens. So we wanted to keep Colleague the same, but how could we use it to track what we need to Transfer of Success Act and be in compliance with state law? So utilizing the processes, Becky's going to preview how it plays out on utilizing different screens. We were able to track the data for not only how do courses transfer in, but also what does not transfer in and why. So it allows us to run reports using AACRAO, our system to pull data out of Colleague, and it is integrated with Colleague. We were able to pull that data from Colleague in, for example, when we had a conversation with the Maryland Higher Education Commission in November, within about 20 minutes, we were able to give them data for the past year. These are all the courses we did not accept and why. So it did create a longer process to do the evaluations, but it allows us to provide, get the data we need and very quickly. When it comes to evaluating for credit for prior learning, we use a lot of the same screens, but one of the big differences is PL, credit for prior learning, right now receives a PA grade instead of a TR grade. The College of Southern Maryland is in conversations about adjusting to have a few different versions of that PA grade to make it clearer on transcripts for receiving institutions like myself now to understand how different types of CPL credit was awarded. CSM does store equivalencies in the screen TCEQ, and CSM's been in about, I want to say it's a year and a half, almost 2-year project where they are end dating all equivalencies that are older than 5 years. They are currently using TES to manage the transcript, the course evaluation process, and that serves as their public view database. Next slide.
Alrighty, so now I'm going to kind of get into the different screens that we use to manage all of this information, to store our equivalencies, and what information we enter to actually be able to pull the data to track it for our reports. So kind of starting to the left, we have our external transcript summary screen. This is where we enter all of our transfer information. This is also where we can get into and equate courses as well and build those equivalencies or see what courses have not been evaluated just yet. So typically, when we go to enter in the course information, if you're looking to the right, we detail in, and when we're doing a direct equivalency, we enter in the external course, the end date, the title, and then the number of credits. Everything in there that is highlighted is entered if we have a course that is denied, and it comes with a grade and a code that have a reason tied to it as to why it was denied. So like in this example, this course is getting a TD7 because the student did not reach the minimum grade that is needed for transfer. The reason we kind of have that TD7 and then we also have this deny 7 is so that our AACRAO system that we use to pull reports, it can take that information so it knows exactly what to grab for the report, so it knows what we're looking at. And then obviously, as you can see back to the left, it depends on how you enter it. I have this entered very nicely where you can see what transfers and then what denies after. After a year and a half of doing this, some don't exactly look that pretty, but that's kind of the screenshot of what it looks like for what transfers and what does not transfer. Next slide. And then here is going to be our TEEV screen, our transfer equivalency evaluation screen. So after we enter in either the transfer course information that we're looking to transfer in or the denial information, we go ahead and we use this screen to directly equate it. So one of the cool things when we build equivalencies in our SIS is that if it registers, it's the same transfer course information, the same number of credits, it'll say, oh, there's a match, and it'll automatically fill in that course. Now, if there is an end date to that equivalency, it won't generate that course. So we're still in the process, like we've been in this project of end dating and updating our equivalencies, but the end goal for specifically the SIS system would be if I enter in a course and it automatically equates, I know it's active, it's good to go, I don't have to do anything else. If I enter it in and it doesn't automatically pop up, that triggers my brain to go, oh, okay, I got to request a syllabus. But we also use TES to track this information as well, which right now is a little bit better while we're cleaning up our SIS equivalencies because we kind of started with a clean slate. So we have all of those active equivalencies in there. And then for our denied courses, kind of like this example, we created a course. It's TRD with 4 zeros following because I can enter in all of this denied information, but the students and the advisors, and honestly, I think I'm really the only person that can see it unless it is equated to some type of course. So we created this course code to equate it, and kind of how we were talking about with our transfer, you have transfer courses or TR, PLA, or CPL is going to be that PA grade. For our denied courses, it's going to be a DN. So that way it'll show on the record, but it's not going to pull for the transcript. And this is kind of the same, like we were saying before, all of this information for our credit for prior learning is entered in this same screen. So we have an agreement with our Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute where that is considered our credit for prior learning, and we enter the courses here, and when we equate it, it has that PA grade. So it's all kind of lives within that same area, so you don't have to, go to a bunch of different screens or learn different processes for it. And then next slide. And then this is going to be our stack screen. So this is where we really track all of the information. This is where you can see, if you look, there is in the middle a status where it will have TR for our transfer, it'll have PA for our credit for prior learning, and it'll have that DN for if you have a denied grade. Like I said, if it has that DN, it's not going to pull onto the transcript, and it also is not going to pull for financial aid eligibility, because that was one of the big things, is we wanted to make sure we weren't affecting our financial aid people. So we definitely made sure we had everybody at the table when it came to putting this together and making sure we're tracking the information and entering it correctly. And then next slide. And this is kind of what it looks like on the student end. So one of the pieces of the law said that we have to be able to report all of these denied courses and why the courses weren't denied, and students have to be able to view this reasoning why. So it's another reason why we decided to we had to equate the courses to that TRD course so that students are able to log into their self-service and see what was transferred, what was denied, and why. And to the left, we have our nice list. This shows at the top. So a student can see, oh, okay, I had a TD4, and that means that course was a developmental course. So that must be why it didn't transfer. And then next slide. And then this is kind of an example of one of our reports. We pull a lot of reports when it comes to tracking our data. This one is specifically for our denied courses so that we can see, see what courses were denied. We can pull it so it's specifically for each student to send to institutions. We also have reports to keep track of whenever we need a syllabus. So we have a denial grade, it's TDP. So we have a specific one for that we receive, so that we can see, okay, what's pending, what have we received, what have we not received, or even if I have one where I never received the syllabus, but a student a year later sends it to me, I can kind of go back to that eval and go, okay, this has finally been evaluated, we have the syllabus. We have one for tracking our equivalencies that we build in that TCEQ database so that we can kind of really keep track of what's been getting done, where we are with the different schools. The main focus has been our Maryland schools because that's kind of where the law hits us the hardest. It says everything's Maryland public, but we are trying to build it for out-of-state institutions as well.
Yeah, so with this, like we said at the beginning, part of it was we really didn't have a choice. We had to figure this out. But in the end, it did provide us some benefits. For students, one of the big pieces was it started creating transparency in the transcript evaluation process. Before we started doing this work, and even as we were doing this work, at first we only did it for Maryland publics, not for Maryland privates and out of state, because they were optional. So as an institution, it was decided we will focus on Maryland publics as the pilot and then roll out Maryland privates and out of states later. So once we knew we had all the kinks. But one of the big pieces we noticed as we started doing this, we would get less of the random emails of why didn't this transfer? Why didn't this transfer? It was right there. So that was one of the big pieces was it started coming back on emails, random phone calls, things like that. And students can log into their self-service and see it. And that was definitely helpful. It also started helping streamline reevaluation situations for students who changed programs. So if a student changed their program and we got that notification, we could go in and see, is it they had too many credits and we need to start pulling at others? Or is it, they really tapped out their transcript, everything else is because it's developmental or they didn't meet the minimum grade. As an institution, it really started helping the College of Southern Maryland understand what courses don't transfer, to start looking at our learning outcomes and figure out why is this not transferring? Where are we going to start running into issues in the future? And not only transfer in, is this telling us that our courses are not supposed to be transferring out? So it really helped us start getting that data. As a state law, if a student is transferring between Maryland public institutions, a gen ed must transfer no matter what. And so it helped us start seeing that clearer as well. And then for especially our advising staff and our frontline staff in the registrar's office, when they started getting questions from students about their evaluations, they're able to answer questions instead of saying, hold on, let me message people. They can see, hey, why didn't this course come in? Advisor can pull up their self-service and see, oh, you were told to submit a syllabus. You haven't done that yet. So it really just helps clean up that line of communication.
Thank you so much, Jackie and Becky. That was very interesting. So to end the presentation is going to be Homegrown SIS by Desley and Nathan. We're probably going to end up at the very end of this hour. So if there are any questions after when this is all over, please drop them in the chat and we'll try to get back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Josie. So my name is Nathan Chicolo. I'm the Senior Director with the University of Phoenix. Desley's presenting with me also. And we're just sharing our homegrown system that we've kind of built over the years. And so kind of get into that. This very aesthetically pleasing green screen here was built in I believe the 90s. And so this has kind of grown over the years and we've just keep stacking stuff on it. And sometimes that's great and it works great. And then sometimes we get to a point where trying to add something into this can kind of be a tipping point for this system. And so like Josie had brought up earlier, we do occasionally run into, hey, the one person that had the tech knowledge as to how things were working and how it was set up leaves or is tied up in another project. And so sometimes it's kind of like an act of Congress to get something built or updated in this thing. But to be honest, what it's allowed us to do is really configure our SIS and tailor it specifically to our institution, which has allowed us over the years to be as efficient as we needed to be as far as evaluating transcripts, courses, and admitting students. This screen here, you can see this is kind of our primary hub screen. It's got some history notes, some demographic information, a quick snapshot as to the student's admission status. And then the screen on the right there is basically a snapshot as to what those transfer activities were when they come in and have been evaluated there. Desi will go into more detail in a minute as to what that looks like when we do an evaluation. But we can go to the next screen there. Because that green screen was so old, we actually created an overlay, kind of a different UI that's tailored to each different department. So they're called workbenches. So our academic folks have one that they can do scheduling and those kind of things in, but from an evaluation standpoint, we have our admissions workbench, in which all the transfer credits and courses that we're going to be evaluating are found here. And this is really the primary hub where our folks will be working. And so I'll turn it over to Desley and she'll kind of walk us through the workbench here.
Thank you. You can go to the next slide. So one of the focus questions that we had was how we leverage some of the transfer articulation. One of the really great accessories, I guess you could call it, from both Osiris and Workbench, because essentially Osiris is really feeding a lot into these different workbenches, but it's our transcript key. So when we're in a student record and we want to go specifically to what transfer school they have, we can, on a click of a button, go into that school and then click the transfer key. And within this, we can readily access their accreditation information, calendar type, grade type, comments if there's anything kind of wonky that's kind of outside the normal evaluation process. We have that little comment section, and then course numbering. We don't have the capabilities of storing course descriptions within either Osiris or with Workbench. And so going back to what Nathan was saying, we have a lot of different teams, and the Workbench is really tailored to those different teams. My team particularly is the articulation team, and we house all of those course descriptions in our own kind of internal storage. However, evaluators on the other side, if they wanted to go access descriptions or catalogs, they can go into TES to grab that. Next slide. So this is what the articulation workbench looks like. So we store all of the articulated decisions within this. It's almost like our internal database. So what we do is go in here, we'll grab a catalog, we evaluate all the courses, and then this is yearly, and we data enter it into the system. If it's a course that's already there, then really we just need to look at the effective dates. And if there's no change, then we can extend that effective date and keep moving forward. But if there is a change in title or credits or course description, anything like that, then we end date it, create a new entry, and put the decisions on there, especially like the general education decisions and equivalencies and such. One of the kind of a great feature, if you go back, is we have this kind of confidence level. I won't go too much into it, but basically our evaluators know that if there's a confidence level of 5, that means it's been articulated. And once they get it on their end, I'll show you in a second, if it pops up as a confidence level 5, then they can rest assured that, okay, this has been evaluated, this decision is good to go. I really don't have to think about it. I can just click and move forward. So I'll show you that next, and you can go to the next slide. This is now going back to the admissions workbench. This is our evaluators and what they're seeing. So in the first screen here, you can see that on the very left-hand side, it's all the little dots are all in yellow, and then the TC is all in P. So that just means to the evaluator, this has been data entered. So we have a data entry team that does all of that when transcripts come in. Evaluators then get it and say, okay, this is yellow and it's pending evaluation. The very first thing that they're going to do is go to this button on the second page here. We have a run reuse audit. And that will basically go into the articulation database. It'll do its magic. And on this end, it will report out from all of these courses that the student has on file. This is what we found as a match. And then you can see here On the right-hand side, we have a 5 under categories. The very last column there will say, this course has actually been articulated before. We have a direct equivalency, and it's a confidence level 5. You can apply it to ComArts. You can apply it to all that good stuff. If there's anything that the reuse database doesn't pull up, then the evaluator has to manually go in and do a course-by-course evaluation. So now you can see on this second course here, all of them are green. That means all the courses are evaluated and we're ready to go. Next slide. The other focus question was, how do we assign institution IDs, district versus individual? So we do assign what we like to call ORGA IDs. This is just an example of DeVry. There's a lot of old stuff here, so I wouldn't think that this is all too up to date. But essentially what we do is we really determine whether we're going to create an org ID as a district or individual campuses based on their transcript. We have a lot of automated data entry that goes on, and so we don't want to necessarily mess with that process. And so the way the transcript comes in will determine how if we're going to look at that course as a district or as an individual campus. So you can see DeVry here has many different campuses, and therefore we have many different ORGA IDs, and there's really no rhyme or reason to how we assign the ORGA IDs. It's just, what's the next number? We need a new ORGA ID. Let's pull that one and utilize it. Nathan, this...
Oh, sorry. You had a question about what's your process for foreign transcripts. Would you say that's the same for foreign transcripts? You pick a number and go?
Yes. Yep. Each foreign institution gets their own ORGA ID, and so they'll be transcribed under that specific one. We don't have a lot of duplicates. I mean, there are some institutions from India and those kind of things that we see frequently, but for the most part, they're kind of one-offs, but it's our way of tracking and being able to report off of them.
And I'll give this one over to Nathan.
Awesome. Thank you. So this is our prior learning assessments, let me back up. Our CPL credits, everything comes in and is transcribed and evaluated and all that stuff as transfer courses. The exception to that is our internal prior learning assessment process. So students have the ability to write, a journal essay or submit a portfolio. Those are all done internally and are transcribed on our transcript as a assessment credit. And so what you see here is, so each PLA type that we have, so like I said, either journal, portfolio, there may be some like industry certification or whatever, those are all have a specific course prefix that are assigned to those. And then the course number, 299, 399, or 599 would delineate between lower division, upper division, or graduate level PLA. And so we actually have to go into Green Screen Osiris in order to apply our PLA credit. And so we don't have a specific workbench created yet for PLA that will allow us to evaluate outside of this screen. So I think we're one of the holdovers that are still using the Green Screen Osiris to do actual evaluations, but all of that's logged in there. And then we can go to the next screen and I'll wrap this up quick because I know we're right at time. So as far as our data goes, Osiris has a lot of backend data tables that we can do SQL queries and do those types of reporting off of at the institution level, but at a kind of dashboard level, so we can have a level set across the organization related to transfer credit and those kind of things. We use Power BI, which is part of the Microsoft suite. And basically, I mean, you can see, here's some examples on the right there. It's kind of program level, number of credits that we accepted, applied, and then the percentage of credits that are transferring based off of a program. And then we also have the ability to look at individual transfer partners or transfer where we get our volume from. And so you can see student volumes and those kind of things, and you can filter it based off of a bunch of different things. But Power APIs allowed us to kind of have a common talking point and kind of level set as far as that goes, because data can get a little bit wonky and can grow legs, and people can kind of, you know, make what they want to out of the stats. And so this is our way of just kind of having one source of truth. So that is what we do, and I think that was it.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. We will be sending out an email with all of the presenters' emails in case you have any specific questions that you guys want to dive into. And then also, as we wrap up, we just want to remind everyone of our next webinar, which is April 26th. The topic is going to be third-party transfer tools. We are still encouraging for more participation. So if you want to share your transfer tools, you can sign up on the link. Again, we'll send an email out with that link for you. And with that, thank you, everyone. And I hope you found the information interesting, and we'll see you in April.
Thank you, presenters.
Thank you. Bye.